Many of the nutritional regulations for food and drink apply across the school day, and therefore they relate to provision by school staff, private providers and school catering services, and of course others may be involved too. The framework includes templates for collating information, but how can you ensure that all staff and stakeholders know what's expected of them in terms of food and drink provision? Jerry?
The Council's website, Twitter page, Facebook page ran a series of animations highlighting the key changes of the revised regulations so that we can ensure everybody is kept up to date with regular updates. We also send out newsletters every month with any updates. In addition, we also have internal auditors who visit kitchens unannounced to ensure that all requirements are met.
So if we've got people on at the seminar today who are from South Lanarkshire teaching staff, the chances are that they will either have seen the animations or they've maybe done online training, or they might have experienced a visit from an auditor in their school as well. Yes, that's really helpful. So that does help pull it all together. Okay. Emma, do you want to just comment on the importance of all school staff being involved in the regulations and decision making around those?
Jerry talks about the need for training and collaboration across the school to meet the standards, which is absolutely important. As it's legislated for, it's important that all school staff are aware of the nutritional regulations. However, the framework really encourages to take that step forward. It encourages us to really reflect and think about developing a whole school approach to food in our schools. It encourages the schools to develop a shared understanding through the support of its visions and its ethos and its values, and ask the totality of our staff and our partners in and across the school and across that day to consider what the regulations mean to them as a school and as an individual. Now, whether that's as a catering service providing lunch, a teacher delivering a cooking lesson, or an enterprise tuck shop that's running in the background. It's important that the regulations are not just seen as something that are delivered in the dining room, but it asks us to consider how joined up are we? What messages do we send around food and food choices? And how consistent are we with that message? Does our approaches to our values and our education and the learning and teaching inside our classrooms, do they all complement our food provision? Training needs to be more than just developing knowledge. It needs to be developing knowledge, looking at that theory and making those connections. It has to focus on the aspects of things that may have the biggest impact. And for our school and our context, what are the things that will really make the difference? And in a nutshell, that's what the framework will support you to do as you move forward.
Thank you. So use of the self-evaluation framework in schools will be voluntary, but at the time of so much change with the nutritional regulations, the introduction of additional hours for early learning and childcare, there's new legislation, Jerry, I think mentioned about that, about food allergens, universal free school meals in primary schools are coming in. The framework provides a way to evaluate the effectiveness and the impact of the school's approaches and practice in all of these areas, because they all affect, if you think about what's at the heart of all of this, it's children, young people, and hopefully providing them with food that meets the nutrient standards, but also inspires them, I think, to make good choices out with school as well. So the HNI team will be using the templates that Jerry mentioned about there as part of inspection evidence gathering before we come to when we're in school, And we would ask that each school completes their own template prior to inspection teams arriving in the school, and that will guide discussions during inspections. And obviously, because of the whole school nature of some of the food and drink standards, that means that they need to be completed together. So I think, Jerry, you've maybe started using some of those already, but it's very clear that there's a section that education have to sign off, and there's a section that the catering service would sign off. So they really have to be done together. So the legislation's in place, and the framework provides a method of looking at the quality of food in schools. So let's turn to the question of why it's so important. Why are we looking at all of this? Why has the government put in revised regulations for food in schools? So Leslie shares her thoughts on food in schools and its impact on health, well-being and beyond.
Food, as I said earlier, it's a very emotive subject, and we can use all sort of judgmental language around it. And I think we need to step away from that. And I think one of the things about the framework is we try and take the pressure off of, you know, everything happening in the dining hall and it being left to catering, to say, well, actually, let's explore what happens around that. Let's look at food and society culturally. You know, food in Scotland, what kind of relationship do we have with it? Is it a healthy one? And if not, how do we change it?